Hello everyone, nice to see you again. I am RK. In this video, let's see how to install LAMP in our Linux system. LAMP means Apache, PHP and MySQL in Linux system. And after installing that, try to use WordPress in that installed Apache. Let's open our terminal. Okay, let's update that. Okay, let's install Apache first. Apt install Apache 2. Okay, Apache is installed. Let's check the status of that. If it's running or stopped. Systemctl status Apache. Apache is running. You can also check that using service Apache 2 status. Let's stop this now. We don't need that. We can start that later. Okay. Let's check the status again. Yeah, it's dead. Now Apache is installed. The next one is MySQL. We need to install MySQL server. Apt install MySQL server. Okay, MySQL is installed. Let's also check the status for MySQL. It's also running. Let's stop that. Okay, yeah, it's dead now. Apache and MySQL is installed. Let's install PHP. Now apt install PHP and PHP for Apache. We need to install lib Apache to mod PHP. And for MySQL, we need to install PHP MySQL. Let's install this. Okay, let's PHP version. Yeah, PHP 7.4 is installed. Here we have installed LAMP, Apache, MySQL and PHP for Linux. Now let's try to install WordPress in this. Let's open the WordPress site. Okay, you can scroll down and here you can see a WordPress download page. Let's download that. Yeah. While the zip file is downloading, let's minimize this. Okay, let's open our MySQL. Before that, we need to start that. System control start MySQL.service. Okay, let's run it as root user. Okay, let's log into MySQL. Now all the WordPress files are going to be under the ownership of RK. So we need to allow the RK user to access the MySQL database. Grant all privileges on star dot star. This will give the all you privileges to the all database for the user RK. To here my username is RK at localhost. Here we are receiving an error because we haven't created the user RK in the MySQL. Let's create that. Create user RK at localhost identified by, and here we need to provide the password. Here my password for this user is 0987654321. It's a very easy password to crack. Now let's run the previous command again. Now the user RK has the all access to make changes in all the database. Now let's exit from this, and let's exit from the root access too. Now let's try to access the MySQL from the user RK using password. Yeah, it's working fine. Let's see how many databases we have. Here the WordPress is downloaded. Let's exit from MySQL. Here we are going to use example.com to create virtual host in Apache. Let's move to the www directory where we can upload the website files. The default HTML directory is already created by Apache. And let's create example.com directory. We need a root access. Yeah, now the example.com directory is created. Let's change the ownership of this directory to RK, so we don't need an extra permission to upload and make changes in the files. Yeah, the ownership is changed. Let's create a sample file to check whether the Apache and this example.com is working fine or not. Example.com is working. Let's store this in index. Here the file is created. Now we need to make this Apache to point this directory when we enter this domain name and display the content in this directory in the website. For that we need a configuration file which is in the sites available directory. Let's copy the content of the default file in the example.com.configuration file. Now the file is created. Let's make the changes in the configuration. Here this is the virtual host for the Apache. We need a root access to make changes in that. Let's close this and reopen that again with the root access. Now this content is related to the default file, so we need to make changes that related to our website. Instead of HTML, we need to make changes to example.com, so then only the directory will be pointed when we enter the domain name. And we also mention the domain name. We can mention that by server name and domain name. And we can also mention server alias is www.example.com. Let's close that. Here we have created the configuration file for example.com. Let's enable the site. Then only when we enter the domain, it will be pointed here. For that, we can use the tool in the Apache is A2N site. It's like Apache 2 to enable the site. And this is the file which is created in the sites enable folder for this example.com domain. Now let's restart Apache 2. Here the domain is still pointing to its default server. Let's make changes in our local DNS like host file. So when we enter the domain name, it will be pointed to our system. The localhost IP is like 127.0.0.1 and also need to enter the domain name. Let's close that and refresh this page. Yeah, it's working now. It's displaying the content which we created. Now let's move the WordPress file in this example.com directory. Here you can see it's moved. Let's unzip this WordPress file. Let's change the name of this index.html. Now the WordPress files are unzipped. We need to move the WordPress files from the WordPress directory to the root location. Yeah, all the files are moved. Now the WordPress is working fine. Let's make some changes in that. Here we need to enter the database name which we need to use, the database username and the database password, or MySQL username and password. And the database location is localhost. Here we haven't created the database with that name, so let's create that. And we also need to make changes in this WP config file. They have also provided a WP config sample.php file. We need to rename that as WP config.php file. Let's edit that. Here we need to enter the same details which we mentioned before, the database name and the database user, password and the host. Here leave the other content as default and let's save that. And let's refresh the page. Yeah, the WP config is already created. Let's install the WordPress here. Now here we need to give the details about the WordPress. And the username is RK and the WordPress is providing a strong password, so let's copy that. If you need, you can change that later. Here the WordPress is installed. Let's try with entering the username and password. Here the WordPress is installed. Here you can see it's displaying the default WordPress page. Here we have installed LAMP and WordPress in that. So if you have any other doubts, ask me in the comment, and see you later. Bye.